Neville Goddard taught that the reason your desire never externalized was almost never a lack of belief. It was a lack of duration. You believed hard enough, you just never believed long enough without breaking to let the belief harden into a fact. Sit with how uncomfortable that is. You already know how to want the thing. You have wanted it with your whole chest, some nights more than you could stand. What you have never actually done is refuse for a set number of days in a row to react to every single piece of evidence that says you will not get it. So let me be precise about what this video is. This is a video about the discipline of not breaking. Holding one chosen state unbroken for a fixed stretch of days while the world does its level best to knock you out of it. The emphasis lands on the holding, not on finding a better thing to think. Neville had a name for this, and the name is exact. He called it a mental diet. Not a mindset, not a mantra, a diet. And by the end of these next few minutes, you will have something most people never get from a manifestation video, a protocol with a clock. A fixed number of days, one rule, and a way to tell, honestly, whether you are keeping it or quietly cheating. Because here is what nobody says out loud. You have been on this diet before. You just kept breaking it by the second day, and then you blamed the belief instead of the break.
Think about what a diet actually is. A diet is not one virtuous meal. Nobody eats a single salad and calls themselves disciplined. A diet is a rule you hold across days, through hunger, through temptation, through every dinner where the thing you swore off is sitting right in front of you, warm and reasonable and yours for the taking. That is exactly why Neville reached for the word. In his lecture, Mental Diets, he took the logic we all understand about food and moved it inside. A mental diet is a rule you keep over time about which thoughts you will feed and which you will let starve. Notice what the metaphor smuggles in. When you diet with food, the power is never in one good choice. It is in the streak. 10 clean days undone by one binge leave you exactly where you started. The body reads the pattern, not the intention behind it. Your inner life obeys the same law. The mind reads the regimen, not the highlight reel. You can have one magnificent hour of feeling wealthy, or loved, or well, and then spend the other 23 hours feeding the very fear you were trying to end, and then you wonder why nothing moves. So the first shift is this. Stop grading yourself on your best thought. A dieter is not measured by the healthiest thing they ate all week. They are measured by what they did on the hard day, at the weak hour, when nobody was watching. The mental diet asks that same honest question of your inner conversation, and it will not accept your highlight reel as an answer.
Here's the entire protocol, and I want you to notice how small it is. You pick one state, you pick a number of days, and 7 is the classic length. And for that window, you refuse to feed anything that contradicts the state you chose. That is the whole thing. One rule: refuse to feed the unwanted thought. Now watch how much this rule leaves out, because the omissions are the design. There is no requirement to argue with the thought. There is no requirement to analyze where it came from. There is no clever affirmation to construct, no perfect sentence to script and say back to yourself. Most teaching on the inner conversation obsesses over content. Swap the negative line for a positive one. Find the ideal words. The mental diet moves the entire emphasis off the content and onto the regime. What you say instead matters far less than whether you stop feeding the thing at all. This is why the discipline stays narrow on purpose. A narrow rule is a rule you can actually keep under pressure. When the bad news lands and your heart drops, you will not have the composure to write a beautiful counterthought. You have time for exactly one move. Do not take the bait. Do not entertain it. Return to your state. 7 days, one state. Refuse to feed what contradicts it. Everything else in this video simply teaches you what feeding really looks like, because you have been doing it for years without noticing. So what counts as feeding a thought? Get this wrong, and you will believe you are keeping the diet while you quietly break it all day long. Feeding is not the appearance of the thought. The doubt is going to show up. The old fear is going to flare. You cannot stop a thought from knocking on the door, and the diet never asked you to. A bird can land on your head against your will. Neville's point was that you decide whether it gets to build a nest there. Feeding is the reaction. It is the second move, the one you actually control. The thought arrives, and then you lean in. You replay it. You follow it down the corridor into every room it wants to show you. You feel the drop in your stomach, and you stay there, dwelling, rehearsing the disaster in full color. That is the meal. That is you setting the table for the very thing you swore you were finished with. So the discipline is a hair trigger, not a wrestling match. The instant you catch yourself entertaining it, you stop. You do not finish the thought to be fair to it. You do not hear it out. You decline, and you return to your chosen state, again and again, as many times as a single day demands. Let me give you something to carry with you. Before you scroll on, answer this honestly in the comments. What is the one thought you keep feeding, even now, without ever quite deciding to? Naming it out loud is the first day of the fast. Here is the rule that turns this from a nice idea into an actual discipline. Every reaction is a broken fast, and a broken fast sends you back to day one. That sounds harsh. It is meant to. The harshness is precisely where the power hides. Anyone can hold a state for an hour. Anyone can feel certain on a good morning with the sun out and the coffee hot. The mental diet is testing something else entirely. Whether you can hold the state through a full week of provocation without breaking the run. So treat it like a clean streak. You are counting consecutive days, not total days. If you reach day 4 and then at midnight you let the fear in and marinate in it for 20 minutes, you did not lose a little ground. You went back to the start. Day 1, tomorrow morning, from 0. I know how brutal that feels the first time it happens to you, but feel what it does to your attention. Suddenly, a single indulged spiral is no longer a small private failure you can shrug off in the dark. It costs you 3 days you already paid for in full. That price is exactly what has been missing. It is the thing that finally makes you refuse the bait in real time, because now the bait has a number attached to it, and the number hurts. This is persistence made literal. The whole discipline lives in the unbroken run, never in any single perfect thought. Your job is not to think brilliantly. Your job is to keep the chain intact for 7 days straight. If the rule is to stop feeding the unwanted thought, we have to be honest about what actually feeds it, because it is rarely the words, it is the feeling underneath them. In Feeling is the Secret, published in 1944, Neville laid it out plainly. A maintained feeling is the mechanism by which a state hardens into fact, not the sentence you repeat, the feeling you sustain. Thoughts are the surface. Feeling is the fuel that decides which thoughts get built into your world and which ones evaporate. This reframes the whole fast. When the doubt shows up, the real danger is not the doubt as an idea, it is the feeling you pour into it, the sinking, the clenching, the quiet rehearsal of loss. That is the nourishment. Starve that feeling, and the thought is just noise passing through an empty room on its way out. It also tells you what to feed instead. You are not on this diet to think positive thoughts. You are here to sustain the feeling of the wish already fulfilled, the calm of the thing already done and behind you. It does not have to arrive as fireworks. A quiet, steady feeling held across days beats a loud one held for an afternoon. The body reads the regimen, remember, not the intensity of any single hour. If this is landing for you, take a second and subscribe. There is a lot more of this work here, and it goes deeper each week. We are building this thing together, one video at a time. So the fast has 2 faces. Starve the feeling that fuels the fear. Feed the feeling of the end already reached. It is the same discipline, pointed in both directions at once. Let me warn you about the third day, because almost everyone breaks somewhere near it, and knowing it is coming gives you a real chance to survive it. The first day is easy. You're fresh, you're decided, the whole thing feels clean and even a little exciting. The second day holds too, mostly on momentum. Then comes the stretch where the novelty is gone and the results have not arrived, and the mind starts asking its most dangerous question. Is any of this even working? That question is the trap, and it pays to see it clearly. It disguises itself as being reasonable. It feels like maturity, like you are simply checking in, taking stock, being honest with yourself. But checking whether the state has externalized yet is itself a reaction. It is you breaking the fast in order to inspect the fast. Inspection is doubt wearing good manners. Neville stressed persistence for exactly this reason. The state you assume feels unnatural at first precisely because it is not yet your habit, and the middle of the run is where the old self makes its strongest case to quit. The abyss in this work is not some cinematic dark night of the soul. It is a plain Wednesday afternoon where nothing has changed and giving up feels perfectly sensible. So plan for the third day right now while you are calm. Decide in advance that the flat, unrewarded stretch is the diet doing exactly what a diet does. The results were never going to show up on the days you found it easy. They show up on the far side of the days you almost quit. There is a subtler way to break the fast, and it fools intelligent people most of all. It is the trap of arguing back. When the fear rises, the clever mind refuses to simply indulge it. That would feel too undignified. Instead, it decides to defeat the fear with logic. It lines up all the reasons the fear is unfounded, it builds a case, it cross-examines the doubt point by point, feeling productive and grown up the entire time. Here is why that is still feeding. To argue with a thought, you have to hold it up in front of you and stare at it. You have to give it your full attention, your energy, your feeling for as long as the debate runs. That is not starving it. That is hosting a formal dinner in its honor and calling the dinner a courtroom. Neville's instruction runs the other way entirely. You overcome the unwanted thought by refusing it the interview. You will not entertain it. You give your attention to the state you chose to live in, and you let the fear stand out at the door, making its case to a room with nobody in it. This is the hardest reflex to unlearn because everything in you wants to resolve the thought, to win the argument and finally feel safe. But an argument won is still an argument entered, and entering was the whole cost. Do not argue. Do not analyze. Do not negotiate for a better feeling. Turn your attention, gently and completely, back to the end you have already chosen to live in. Then there are the days the world seems to conspire against you, and I will not pretend they never come. They tend to come precisely when you have committed, as if the moment tests the vow. You start the diet on Monday, certain and calm. By Thursday, the bank sends the exact letter you feared. The person goes cold, the old symptom flares. The evidence stacks up clean and undeniable, and every sense you have shouts that the state you are holding is a lie you are telling yourself against the plain facts. This is the real test of the whole discipline, so hear it carefully. The mental diet asks you to register what happened and still refuse to feed it. The letter is real. Your reaction to the letter is the meal, and the meal remains optional even on the worst day. Remember the order Neville taught. The outer world is the harvest of states you were already holding. What arrives on Thursday is fruit from seeds planted long before Monday. If you break the fast to react to it, you are not responding to the present at all. You are replanting the past and calling it realism. So when the evidence piles up, you do the same small thing you have practiced all week. You acknowledge the fact and withhold the feeling. You let the event be true without letting it dictate your state. The world showed you its current balance, nothing more. You went on this diet precisely to change what it shows you next month.
By now, you can feel where all of this has been heading. The power was never in the perfect thought. It lives in the unbroken run. And I want to make that concrete before we finish. Picture two people who want the same thing with the same intensity. The first has brilliant days and terrible ones, a morning of soaring certainty, an evening of total collapse, a peak on Tuesday, a spiral on Friday, week after week. The second person holds a plain, unremarkable version of the state, nothing dramatic about it, but holds it every single day without one real break. The first person never manifests and cannot understand why, because on their best days they felt more faith than the second person ever touched. But the mind was reading the whole ledger, and that ledger kept getting torn up and rewritten. The second person wins, not on intensity, but on continuity. That is the entire secret this diet is built to deliver. A modest state kept unbroken beats a magnificent state that keeps collapsing. Persistence is not a supporting player in this teaching. It is the mechanism itself. A state hardens into fact through repetition, through the sheer refusal to interrupt it before it sets. So stop chasing the peak. Stop straining to feel it harder. Aim instead for the boring, durable thing, the quiet certainty you can actually carry from Monday to Monday without ever setting it down. What has failed you before was rarely the strength of the belief. It was the length of the hold, and the hold is the part you can finally control.
So what actually happens across 7 unbroken days? Something quiet and easy to miss if you are only watching your outer circumstances for a sign. The state stops feeling like a costume. On day 1, holding the wish fulfilled feels like acting, like you are pretending against reality, and part of you keeps rolling its eyes at the performance. But a feeling you sustain long enough stops announcing itself as a performance. It sinks below the surface. It becomes the water you swim in rather than the thing you strain to hold above your head. This is what Neville meant by a state hardening into fact. The universe does not suddenly notice your effort and reward you for it. The state becomes natural to you, your default assumption, the thing you feel to be true before you have any outer reason for it. And the outer world, which was always the harvest of your inner states, begins to match the one you now live in by default. You will usually feel the inner shift before you see the outer one. There comes a day when the old fear knocks and you notice, almost with surprise, that it has lost its grip on you. It cannot pull you in anymore. That is the fast working. That is the moment the state stopped being something you do and became something you are. And once a state is who you are, you no longer have to feed it on purpose. It feeds itself. The diet was never meant to run forever. It was meant to carry you to the point where the new state holds itself without your effort, and then hands you back your attention.
So here is your protocol, and you can begin it tonight, before you sleep. Pick one state, only one. The thing already yours, the calm of it already done. Set the number of days and start with 7. Then for that window, you keep the single rule. You feed only that state, and you starve everything that contradicts it. Not by arguing with the fear, not by analyzing it, not by scripting the perfect sentence, only by refusing over and over to take the bait, and returning to the end you have chosen to live in. Expect the flat stretch around day 3. Expect the day the evidence piles up against you. Expect the clever urge to argue the fear into submission. When any of it comes, you do the one small thing. You register the fact. You decline the feeling. You return to your state. And if you break the fast,
You do not spiral into despair over it. You start the count again at day 1, and this time you know exactly where the cliff was. The thing that never worked before was not a weakness in your belief. It was that you kept feeding the very thought you swore you were done with, and you never held the line long enough to discover what you are actually capable of. 7 days, 1 state. Refuse to feed the rest. Keep it until the clock runs out, and let the world catch up to the person you have already decided to be. If this gave you something real, subscribe and hold your state.